Welcome to the Walking Dread podcast. All right, get ready because this time we're going deep into two really unsettling stories. They take us right to the edge of what we know, maybe even beyond human experience. You could say it's a way to feel the chill without actually stepping into the shadows yourselves. You sent in some seriously creepy stuff, and we've gone through it all to bring you what we think are the most intense nightmares.
Hello. And it's fascinating to me that in both these stories, sound plays such a key role. Sound, something we kind of ignore most of the time or just take for granted, becomes this terrifying warning of something truly awful. We'll be digging into how sounds that seem innocent, maybe even just a bit strange, can actually be hiding ancient evils, evils that can set really bad things in motion, unstoppable things.
Our first plunge into darkness is a story called Song of the Lost. It throws us right into the middle of things with a group of, experienced campers. And they stumble across this hauntingly beautiful melody deep in the woods. Starts out as, just a spooky thing, piques their curiosity. But then things go south fast. It turns into a deadly trap, and it seems like a spectral child is behind it all. We're going to break down how this music, this melody, it's not just a tune, it's more like a growing chorus, and every voice is a lost soul.
Then we'll untangle the night's warning.
Mm-hmm.
This one focuses on this really persistent, and I mean inhuman scream that echoes through a whole campground. Every night,
Yeah.
right at midnight. And one camper, she decides to try and figure out what this bone-chilling sound means, but what she uncovers is this terrifying message that's connected to, an ancient evil. And even more disturbing, she finds out she's got a horrifying role to play in bringing it back.
So let's jump right into Song of the Lost. Okay. These campers, they were experienced, right? They were out there for a challenge, not just some, relaxing weekend in nature. The story starts with this melody. It's described as off and sweet, sad, and impossibly lonely. And there's this guy, Ben. He tries to brush it off, says it's just spooky but harmless, but it doesn't even sound like he believes himself. What do you think? That initial gut reaction, that feeling that something is just so fundamentally wrong with the sound, what does it tell you?
Well, right away, it's that description, sweet, but off. It creates this clash, right? It goes deeper than their logical, experienced camper minds. It hits them on a level where they feel like the natural order of things, it's been messed with somehow. And you're right. The fact that they were looking for a challenge is interesting. It makes you think maybe they were already open to the unusual, even drawn to it. Maybe that made them more vulnerable to the pull of something truly strange. It really makes you wonder about that line between, seeking adventure and walking right into real danger.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a scary sound at first. It was like it snaked through the trees, eroding their bravado, almost like it was lulling them deeper into the woods. It's almost like because they wanted that challenge, they were more susceptible to this creepy lure, something they wouldn't have even been paying attention to if they were just on a casual camping trip. It's kind of ironic, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like when we really crave something extreme,
Yeah.
it can sometimes override our natural caution. They were ready for a physical challenge, right?
Wow.
Tough terrain, maybe some wildlife encounters. But this was something totally different, totally unexpected. They were so focused on one kind of risk that they were blind to another, a much more insidious one. And this one, it played on their curiosity, not their fear.
Right. And then they reach this clearing and they see what's making the music. It's this child. It's described as glowing faintly in the twilight. It's not some, typical monster. It's this unsettling figure, and it's got this ancient, unsettling hunger in its eyes. The image of a child, usually symbol of innocence, with this old and malevolent stare. I mean, doesn't that just send shivers down your spine? What does it make you think of?
It's disturbing, really disturbing. It goes against everything we expect.
Yeah.
We expect children to be innocent, to need protection. To see that innocence twisted, taken over by something so old and predatory, well, it suggests a corruption that goes way beyond a simple monster. It feels primal, like something old and evil wearing a mask of something harmless. It forces you to think about the idea that evil, real evil, can hide in the most unexpected places.
And the melody itself, it's not just one tune. It's described as layers of it, each whistle a different voice. That seems like a major turning point in the story. It's when they start to understand what they're up against. What do you think that layering means? What does it tell us about the child and this music it's creating?
It implies a history, a collection of experiences, and probably pretty terrible ones. Each voice woven into the song, I think it represents a soul that this entity has taken. We're absorbed. The music, it becomes more than just a haunting song. It's like a lament, a chorus of despair. It hints at how much loss there's been and the power that this spectral child has. It makes you think about how things that seem beautiful, maybe even peaceful, can be built on a foundation of suffering. Huge suffering.
It's like each note is a prisoner, echoing some past tragedy. Then there's this one camper, the brave one. He tries to, debunk the whole thing, right? He tries to whistle a counter melody, like he can just whistle it away. It goes about as well as you'd expect in a horror story. He doesn't just run off, he's pulled right into the song. His simple whistle is layered on top of the child's tune, forever woven into its tapestry of sorrow. What do you think? What does this act of defiance tell us about the curse itself? What's its nature?
It shows that some things, you just can't fight them with logic or reason. The supernatural, the way it's shown here, it works by its own rules. The curse doesn't just stop his attempt to fight it, it uses it. His defiance becomes part of its power. It's a chilling example of what can happen when you try to control something truly unknown. You can end up completely swallowed by it.
It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And even as Ben and the others try to escape, the melody, it changes. It's not just a lure anymore. It becomes a binding. It gets into their breaths. And without knowing it, it turns them into hunters, too. It's a twisted version of that classic horror idea of being hunted. They become part of the very thing that's chasing them. What do you make of that transformation?
That twist, it plays on our deepest fear of losing control, of being turned against ourselves and everyone we care about. The melody, it doesn't just follow them. It gets inside them. It corrupts their instincts for survival. It turns them into tools for the spectral child. It really highlights how a threat can become part of us, blurring the line between victim and attacker.
And Ben, he manages to get away physically, but he can't speak anymore. He can't warn anyone. All that comes out is this haunting melody. He's invisible to the other campers, the ones who have been changed. He tries to warn others, but he just becomes one more instrument in the spectral child's chilling symphony. What do you think is the real tragedy here? Ben's journey from being prey to being part of this awful thing.
I think the real tragedy for Ben is that he's completely lost his ability to connect, to communicate. He survives the initial horror. But the thing that saved him, his escape, it isolates him completely. He knows the danger, but he can't warn anyone. He's trapped in this horrifying in-between place, forced to play along with the very evil he witnessed. It speaks to the deep loneliness, the despair of not being able to make yourself understood.
It's a bleak and isolating fate. And the story doesn't end there, does it? It's like the forest itself takes on this deadly soundtrack. Hikers, they just hear whistling and think it's natural sounds, right? They have no idea that each whistle is a voice, each voice a soul the spectral child claimed. It paints this really disturbing picture of a place that looks innocent, natural, but is actually filled with this constant hidden threat. What's the lasting feeling that this creates for you?
It creates a sense of deep unease. It suggests that danger can be hidden anywhere, masked by the ordinary, by the familiar. A beautiful, peaceful place is now tainted. You can't trust the sounds you hear anymore. It makes you think what unseen histories might be woven into the places we think are safe.
And Ben, he's stuck on the outside of it all, right? And he can't undo any of it. He's this chilling reminder of the terrible price of curiosity in the face of the unknown. His melody, it becomes both a lament and a lure. There's no happy ending, no resolution. It's just this endless cycle of horror. What do you think about that? How does that lack of escape of any hope make the story even more horrifying?
The fact that there's no hope is key. It makes the curse feel final, and the spectral child's power overwhelming. There's no hero, no magic trick to break the spell. It's just the reality of loss, permanent loss, and evil winning. That sense of doom, of being trapped, that's what makes it so unsettling. It stays with you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to our second story, The Night's Warning. This one is about this persistent, and it's described as inhuman scream. It happens every night at midnight in this campground. There's this girl, Becca, and she records it. It's described as not the shriek of a terrified woman, but inhuman. Even when her brother tries to explain it away, says it's a fox or a sound glitch, there's something really creepy about it. What do you think is important about the fact that the sound is clearly not human, especially in a natural setting like this?
Well, right away, it tells us that something is really wrong. An inhuman scream in the wilderness, it just doesn't belong. It's something that can't be explained easily. It suggests that there's something there or something happened there that's outside of normal human experience. It creates this primal unease, like a warning that something unknown and dangerous is close by.
So Becca, she's not satisfied with the easy answers, right? She records it again and then she plays it in reverse. And that's when things get really weird. The distorted cry turns into words, unleashed dot the bearer dot unbroken seal. The sound goes from just being creepy noise to being a possible warning. What do you think this hidden message means? What does it tell us about the scream itself?
It tells us that the scream isn't just random. It's like a form of communication, a warning, or maybe even a key to something important. The words unleashed and unbroken seal, they make you think of something powerful that was locked away, and now maybe it's getting out. And the bearer, that suggests someone specific, maybe Becca, is connected to all this. It makes you wonder, where did this terrifying sound come from, and what is it trying to do?
And all the while, the adults are ignoring it. The other campers are making jokes about it, bringing up those old stories about a Native American burial ground. But Becca, she feels the chill of prophecy. Why do you think she feels that way? Why is she so different from everyone else? Why is she picking up on the danger when no one else is?
I think it's because she's really paying attention to the sound. She's not just dismissing it, she's recording it, analyzing it, reversing it. She's trying to understand it. And because of that, she finds the hidden message. The others, they're happy with simple explanations, so they miss it completely. And maybe those old stories, even though everyone's treating them as jokes, they're making her think about ancient things, supernatural things, even if she doesn't believe them at first.
And then they find this mound. No tombstone, just these stones, all overgrown and radiating this unnatural stillness. It's a small detail, but it's powerful. The lack of natural activity, the silence in the middle of the woods, it really tells you something about this place, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That unnatural stillness, it creates this feeling that something's really wrong. It's not just a patch of ground that no one's touched. It's like something there is actively suppressing life, even sound. It's like the natural order is broken, and that silence is like a silent alarm. It tells you that something important, and maybe very dangerous, is sleeping under the ground. It shows how sometimes silence can be more powerful, more revealing than any sound.
And then there's this teenage boy, full of bravado, like teenagers are. He wants to open it, of course, and the others, they encourage him. Becca tries to warn them, but they don't listen. They start prying open the stones. It shows how dangerous curiosity can be, especially when it's mixed with arrogance, and how people underestimate the unknown. What do you think this reaction tells us about human nature? What happens when people are faced with something mysterious and potentially dangerous?
It shows a flaw that we all have. We tend to underestimate risks, especially when we're trying to show off or when our friends are egging us on. We want to conquer the unknown, to prove ourselves. And that desire can be stronger than caution or common sense. Becca's warnings, they're ignored because everyone's excited. They think they can control whatever they find. It's a powerful reminder that curiosity, without respect for what we don't know, can have terrible consequences.
And this is where the story takes a dark turn for Becca. She realizes that her reversed recording, it wasn't just some cool discovery, it was a blueprint, and she is the bearer. Her trying to understand the scream, that was the very thing that activated the curse. It completely changes the idea of someone discovering a mystery, doesn't it?
It's a truly chilling twist. Instead of being just an observer, someone uncovering a mystery, Becca is now part of the evil itself. Her attempt to understand the warning, it actually fulfills a role in unleashing it. It makes you ask, is some knowledge just too dangerous? Can our attempts to understand the unknown actually be what destroys us?
And then she decides to go into the mound, the one that's been opened. She's not trying to escape. She's going deeper into the trap. It's like a time machine set in reverse. And the wail from the ground, it basically becomes her own scream, but transformed. What's so ironic about her trying to stop the evil?
It's tragic.
Yeah.
Becca tries to confront the evil, maybe even reseal it, but she becomes part of it. Her scream, which might have been a warning to others, is now twisted and made stronger by the tomb itself. She's a prisoner now, a part of the very thing she tried to understand and stop. It shows how pointless it can be to fight an ancient power when you don't really understand it.
And then midnight comes, and Becca's scream cuts through the air, but it's not hers anymore, but warped, made monstrous by the tomb. It's a part of the creature now, and it helps to relock the seal. So she went from trying to figure out a warning to becoming the warning itself.
Okay.
Stuck in this awful cycle.
Exactly. She's not a person acting on her own anymore. She's a part of this ancient evil, helping it to continue. Her scream, once a possible sign of hope, is now a sign of the evil's power, a twisted result of her curiosity and the consequences of her actions.
And the story makes it clear that this isn't the end. Explorers, they're going to keep finding this mound. Drawn in by the mystery and the nightly scream, they won't know it's a trap. It makes you feel this real sense of dread, doesn't it? Like this cycle will just keep going on forever.
It's bleak. It's a horror story that keeps repeating. The mystery of the scream is a trap. drawing in new victims, making sure the ancient evil lives on. It's like some curses, some evils. They're not meant to be defeated. They're designed to last. And they feed on our desire to understand the unknown.
And the idea that the curse isn't just trapped inside the tomb is the tomb, and that it gets stronger every time someone tries to break the seal. It tells us that nothing can be done. This is a really insidious kind of evil, isn't it?
It really is. The curse isn't a separate thing. It's part of the place itself. If you try to fight it, you just make it stronger. It shows you the danger of messing with ancient forces. Even if you have good intentions, you can end up making things much worse.
And Becca's scream, which could have been a warning, is now warped into a lure, bringing others to the same horrible fate. What do you think is the saddest part of her story?
The saddest part is that everything she tried to do got twisted. She wanted to understand, maybe warn others. But now she's part of the machine that keeps the evil alive. She's a tool for the curse, bringing others to the same end that she met. Her curiosity, her desire to learn, led her to torment, and now is putting others in danger. So looking back at both of these creepy stories, it's clear that the unknown can be really terrifying, especially when sound, something so basic to how we experience the world, becomes a trick, a way to lure us into horror. In Song of the Lost, a beautiful melody leads to total destruction. And in The Night's Warning, a disturbing sound hides an ancient evil that's waiting to break free. The really chilling part, and something for you, the listener, to think about, is that the harder these characters tried to understand or dismiss what was happening, the faster they fell into the darkness.
Yeah, it's like by trying to figure out the mystery, they just walked right into it. So after taking this journey with us into these sonic nightmares, think about this. Are there sounds in your world, sounds that seem harmless or maybe even interesting, that are hiding something much darker? And what if our curiosity, that basic human urge to know, what if it doesn't lead us to knowledge but instead makes us part of the very horror we're trying to understand? Rate and follow the Walking Dread podcast for more journeys into the shadows.